Hello there. This is just a short video on a rather controversial subject, and I want to make it clear I'm not in any way going to support Russia invading anywhere or people being killed. But I think what's happened is Russia and particularly Putin have been demonized, whereas he's just one of many world leaders who probably have a lot to answer for, including the Ukrainian administration and also the United States. So I'm going to go into that in a minute and explain why I'm saying this. So there's a link in the video below which shows you video of the Ukrainians making chemical weapons and putting them onto little drones so they can attack the Russian forces with that. And as Scott Ritter points out and others, if this had been done by the Russians, there would be a massive outcry all over the world. But this is being ignored. And this isn't the only war crime that the Ukrainians have committed. They've been executing Russian prisoners, they've been attacking their own people, but the media narrative is all, yay, Ukraine, Russia, bad. And this isn't based on reality, this is based on the narrative that they've been told to push. And basically this comes down to EU policy and American policy. So, there's a tremendous amount of hypocrisy here from Western powers who are praising up Zelensky, who has turned a blind eye to all kinds of crimes and the activities of the Nazi far right in Ukraine. As far as I can see, he's just a puppet, really. A puppet with his hand out for more money. And his country is going to be destroyed. And I imagine that he'll probably leave eventually and clear off to some lovely house somewhere with his beautiful wife and have a charmed life while the people of Ukraine continue to suffer for decades to come. And I'm saying there about Western hypocrisy. Well, I'll give you some examples. If you think back to the last Iraq war, the Americans were using depleted uranium weapons, and they were also using white phosphorus. Both of these are illegal under the Weapons Convention, the Geneva Convention. So that shouldn't have been happening, but it did. And in Syria, the so-called chemical weapons use by the Syrian government, it was all fake. It's just been revealed in the last month or so that it was all bollocks. It was complete and utter rubbish. But, for a long time people have believed that was the truth. The Western media has been peddling lies, and in some cases maybe the media outlets actually knew it was untrue, but they just did it anyway. And then if we think about a bit further back, Iraq, in the Iraq and Iran war, the Americans had helped Saddam Hussein with his weapons arsenal, the chemical weapons that he used on the Iranian people in that war. They targeted and gave all sort of the intelligence information for the Iraqi army to decimate the Iranian forces with their chemical weapons. So the Americans were directly involved in that, in the illegal use of chemical weapons on a sovereign nation. And you go back further again, of course, you've got Agent Orange that was used in Vietnam, and all kinds of munitions dropped on Korea. I think more bombs were dropped by the Americans on North Korea than were used in the entirety of World War II by all sides. So, you've got other nations that were involved in Iraq, for instance, and Afghanistan. And the appalling hypocrisy of this, really, it's all about resources. Afghanistan has a huge amount of resources, which, ironically, now the Chinese are getting to take advantage of because, they've approached the Taliban and they haven't threatened them. They've offered them a business deal, whereas the Western approach is to bomb the shit out of people and try and force them into capitulation. So it's really quite depressing to see all these lies in the media and all this hypocrisy, and again turning a blind eye to the heinous deeds of, in this case, Ukraine. But whenever it's expedient, that's what the Western powers do. They turn a blind eye, or they will actually actively help people to commit war crimes if it suits them. So my suggestion is you just be very discerning and take everything that you read from the Western media, well, all media, not just the West, but particularly at the moment the Western media, take it all with a pinch of salt, because there's a lot of reasons for people to lie, and it generally involves huge amounts of money, weapons manufacturing, and toppling governments. This is an agenda that's been around a long time. If I'll put a link again for the project for the American century. It's American policy and has been for quite some long time to try to disable any power that could rival it, particularly Russia and China. But strangely, they've also done an awful lot to try to disable the European Union, which is supposed to be one of their major allies. So I wonder if actually, is it in Europe's interest to still actually be friends with America, to work with them, because they're continually undermining Europe, at the same time extending the hand of friendship. I just find the whole thing quite incredible, and the level of lying in the media that people don't really question as well, to a large extent. I think people need to be a lot more careful about what they read and what they watch, because we really can't rely on the Western media to tell us the truth about anything much, to be honest. So anyway, that's all I have to say on the subject, and my deepest sympathies to both the Ukrainian and the Russian troops who are having to fight it out in this sort of horrible geopolitical game. Of course, it's the old men that sent everyone off to die aren't going to suffer. It's the ordinary people on the front lines and the civilians that pay the price for the decisions of these Machiavellian old people. Okay, that's it for now. Bye-bye.